Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Merrillville Town Council meeting for today, Monday, December 30th at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing afterwards for our invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, first of all, thank you. 53 years ago, men and women stood together to incorporate this town. Thank you, Father, as we reflect upon those years for your goodness. Even now, Father, as we seek the future, we do so asking for wisdom and guidance, praying, Lord, for unity, for discretion, for that which will bless and help our families to grow and thrive. We give you thanks, Father, and seek your guidance through all of this. In his holy name, amen.
And, please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Mr. January, could you call the roll call, please? Attendance?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Vice President Neal.
Here.
Vice Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
Present.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton.
Present.
Councilwoman Uselak.
Present.
Councilman Pettit.
Here.
Councilwoman Hardaway.
Here.
President Bella.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you, sir. Moving on tonight to petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations. We have the home decorating contest winners,
Oh,
Chaz and Rhonda.
yes.
You want to tie in the school tree award also? Great.
I'll do the School Decorating Tree Award first. The School Decorating Tree Award went to the Merrillville Free School. Did they come? They were supposed to be here. No, we thought they were going to be in attendance. Yes, we'll deliver. They do get a gift card to buy school supplies and things that they need for the preschool class. And for our home decorating contest, we do have a first, second, and third place winter. Should I start with third? Let's go last. Okay. The third is to the Calgill family. They were at 201 East 71st Place. They will also receive a $50 gift certificate, and we know they're not here in attendance, so we'll get that to them. Second place goes to the Davis family at 5460 Fillmore Street. Did they show?
Here we are.
Yay!
Yay!
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
And for our first place winner goes to the Carpenter family at 3000 West 57th Avenue.
Yay!
3,000 West.
I wish I could whistle like this.
What about me? Is it on the corner?
Yeah!
All right. Ward 2, second place.
Thank you, Counselor Neal. Next item is the Mayor Board System Rejection Letter, from the PD Chief. Mr. January, do you want to read that into record, please?
All right. Dear Mr. President, greetings pursuant to IC 36-8-3.5-4A, the Town Board of the Metropolitan Police Commissions called a meeting of active members of the Merrillville Police Department for this day to vote on the resolution adopted by the Town Council at its special meeting of November the 20th, 2024. Only active members of the department attended the meeting. Voting was by secret written ballot. The results, give me a drum roll, please. 34 sworn officers voted, 25 voted against the merit board, 9 voted for the merit board. With this action, we believe that this rejection of the merit board system is rejected and properly confirmed by a majority of active members of the police department. Sincerely, Constantinos Nusis, Chief of the Merrillville Police Department.
Mr. Griffin, is there any action that the council needs to do to notify the state that we're not going to participate in the merit board process?
Mr. President, there's no further action that's spelled out under the statute. There may be some discussion about some variations that you may wish to take locally, but there's nothing further that needs to happen by the council.
Can we add those variations to the next council workshop, please?
Mr. President, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Svetnov, court update.
Yes. Mr. President, on December 26th, the Lake County Superior Court in the Merrillville Town Court litigation matter issued a court order concerning the ability of the clerk treasurer to cast a tie-breaking vote. The court issued an order and ruling in favor of the town clerk treasurer on his ability to cast a tie-breaking vote and reestablishing the town court. We are of the opinion that this order is incorrect, at least on 3 fronts. 1, the trial court found that the clerk treasurer could issue a tie-breaking vote even though a true deadlock in voting did not exist. The actual vote that occurred on the reestablishment of the town court was 3 votes yes, 3 votes no, and 1 abstention. Under Indiana Code and Robert's Rules of Order, the vote required a majority of members to elected and present to cast their votes in favor or against the abstention, and the abstention had the same effect as a no vote. 2, the trial court found that the trial court should be reestablished upon only 1 reading of the ordinance, which is in direct conflict with Indiana Code, which establishes that the ordinance must be adopted only upon 2 separate readings unless otherwise allowed. And 3, the trial court found that the clerk treasurer would have voted in favor of the reestablishment of the court, even though his official vote had not been cast. Also, we are of the opinion that the trial court did not consider current case law in the latest version of Robert's Rules of Order, which both directly discuss and interpret abstentions being considered a absolute no vote. Upon considering the above-mentioned factors, the town is preparing a motion to correct error so the trial court can reconsider its order or vigorously file an appeal of this case to the Court of Appeals or possibly the Indiana Supreme Court itself. Finally, please be aware, since the inception of this litigation, which has existed for many years, this is the first negative ruling in which the town has experienced, but we are confident at the end of the day that the town will prevail in closing the court and clarifying the voting role of the clerk treasurer. Thank you.
I'd like to comment.
We're going to move on.
Just a brief comment.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So just in regards to everything our attorney has just said, I believe it's very clear that the statute states that I'm a tie-breaking voter in this particular instance, and I am an elected official. I was denied, and I believe the court made the right decision and will ultimately prevail. I hate to see the town continue to waste money on litigation when the courts to just be open, as the order said.
Thank you. Moving on to public hearings. Mr. Svetnov, we had a publication proof on ordinance 24-48.
The publication proof has been reviewed. It is in conformance with Indiana Code, and at this time should be acted upon.
So we will have a public hearing on ordinance 24-48 at this time. Mr. Griffin, do you have that handy so you can kind of read what syllabus is?
Mr. President, I do now. Thank you for your forbearance.
Yeah, I'm doing
This
the
is a
same thing.
proposed additional appropriation that's necessary at year end in some of the accounts. This is to actually take care of credit balances that ensued before year end. The expenditures have already taken place. This is going to bring them to a net zero. So for the 900 series and a Lowett seated fund, we're proposing $95,882. This is, as you know, by virtue of your standing ordinance, a transfer from the Economic Development Income Tax Fund that is made monthly upon receipt. And that would be for, if approved this evening, $95,882. For the Motor Vehicle Highway Restricted Fund, the proposed amount would be for $210,000, and it is in the 100 series. And finally, in the Local Income Tax Public Safety Fund, this is also for a proposed increase of $50,000. Mr. President, this is just to reconcile credit balances that are in there for expenditures that have been made that were lawful. We're asking your favor on this ordinance, not immediately after the hearing, but when you take it up under second reading, please.
Very good, thank you. Is there any public comment on this particular ordinance? Yes, sir.
Brian Messarch, 201 East 68th Place. We should not be rezoning and offering tax abatements to companies that
This
are...
is about transfer of funds.
It's not that one, Brian.
That's not the ordinance.
The other one's a resolution you're probably thinking about, not an ordinance.
Apologies.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll take this up later in the agenda when it's listed. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Svetnoff. Moving on tonight to the consent agenda, we have the accounts payable register voucher approval for December 30th. We have the AP register summary ARP purchases for December 30th, the approval of the town council meeting minutes of December 10th, the Sender Dalton contract for 2005 review and approval, the approval of meeting minutes for Data Center Advisory Committee for November 20th, 2024, the Dean and Barbara White Community Center meeting minutes from Monday, December 9th, and the approval of the meeting minutes for ARP from December 16th. What's your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, seconded by Councilor Leona. For approval. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on tonight to standing committee reports, Budget and Finance. Councilor Neal.
Thank you, President Bell. I don't have a report tonight.
Thank you. Council Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
No report.
Street Department, Mrs. Uzelak.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Street Department, under the direction of Mr. Stephen King, they have hired 2 new employees, and that is at a rate of $22.73. And they are doing heavy equipment training now at this time, too. They are also picking up trash that people throw on the main roadways. I don't know why they do that, but they've been putting out a lot of garbage, and Steve's got a crew out there picking up all that trash, which takes up a lot of time from our street department. And then he's also been doing general park maintenance, that's cleaning up the parks with the trash and keeping that in order with the bike trail. And do you have anything to offer, Steve?
No, I believe you've said it all.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Moving on to elections, public relations, and town beautification. Councilor Neal.
Thank you, President Bell. We did have one last meeting about our gateway signs, but we unfortunately did not get the quotes in, so hopefully we'll have those in after the new year.
Thank you. Environmental Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
No report.
Personnel Policy and Employee Benefits, Ms. Hardaway.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
How about Public Safety, Ms. Hardaway?
I will defer to Chief Nuisance and Chief Yergin if he's still here
Deferring now or during their report?
during their report.
Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Pettit.
Yes, Mr. President, we had we had two redevelopment commission meetings tonight. One was a workshop at 4:30 where we went through several resolutions. One of them is later on in the agenda tonight. The other four are being moved on to the Plan Commission for creation of new economic allocation areas. And the Redevelopment Commission then met at 6 o'clock and unanimously approved all 5 resolutions. Again, the one resolution comes to the council tonight. It is for the council to consider and discuss. If that resolution passes, it will have to be advertised and a public hearing would take place on January 14th. That being said, I've also scheduled, Leona and I had talked with Michael, and we've scheduled another redevelopment commission workshop for January 14th, Michael, on the corner of 73rd and Madison, which the town owns the property, the old carriage house property that's in Leona's ward, and she's been talking to a potential developer on that, and we want to get that in front of all the RDC members because, ironically, when we received the property, it was put in the redevelopment commission's name, not the town of Merrillville's name. So it's the 5 members that would have to make a decision. I get Joe and Michael, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a workshop. I don't remember the time, Michael, on the 14th.
I think.
Leona, do you remember?
5 or 5:30.
5 or 5:30. We'll have Angie and Joanna get the notice out. That's all.
Thank you. Utility Liaison, Councilor Leona Chandler Felton.
Mr. President, there's no report at this time.
Thank you. Parks and the Dean and Barbara White Community Center.
I'll piggyback with Michael and Lisa. Had the opportunity, as many of you might be aware, the mosaic on the wall by the Dean and Barbara White photo at the center, we're having some problems. We're also having problems. It's the same tile material that is in the McDonald's room, the Commercial Insights room, the AFL-CIO room, and the other room that Boys and Girls Club are using. And there, you walk on it and it's pillowy, and you can actually pull the tiles up. And Mike Neal and I and Geis Van Buren walked through there. They were supposed to have someone else come through there with the holidays. Lisa, I don't know if he got anybody through there or not.
Not that I am aware of.
I made it crystal clear to Geis from Core Construction, Joe, on your behalf, that warranty for 5 years is going to be honored. So this flooring person, if they give Lisa or Mike any pushback, we're sending you in.
Okay.
So we've got to come up with a solution. Someone is going to trip or clip one of those tiles and flip it. If you haven't been through there, you might want to walk with Lisa and be ginger, but there's problems with that.
We don't encourage anybody to walk on it right now.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't walk on it right now, would you say, Lisa?
We're trying, yeah, and they are, unfortunately, the Boys and Girls Club walk through there all the time.
Yeah.
And we actually have some classes going on in the McDonald's community room, which the instructors are aware of. So they've tried to push the class more to the center instead of off to the side, but it has to be repaired. Somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah, and our new recreation, is his title Recreation Supervisor or Coordinator?
Coordinator.
Recreation Coordinator, Chris Geigert, has been putting together some programs, none the least of which is an adult volleyball league that he wants to get started up in the center. We discussed that. We didn't have a meeting, Michael, because of the holidays. Our normal fourth Thursday was the 26th, so I will get with Michael and Lisa for Margie and Keisha and Shauna. We'll schedule a committee meeting for January and get some updates on the flooring and some other things, okay? That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Pettit. Moving on to abandoned blighted properties, Councilor Shi.
Thank you, Mr. President. From November to December, our code enforcement officers responded to 198 incidents. These incidents include calls for service, follow-ups, and packet deliveries. Code enforcement also issued 33 warnings and 39 tickets in that time frame. For the year to date, for this calendar year, code enforcement has received 15 vacant abandoned cases. We are not, at this time, that is all that we have for abandoned and blighted properties. Code enforcement will go back out once spring weather approaches. So if there's any issues
They can just email them over, but code enforcement won't be going out issuing anything until the weather resumes.
Thank you.
That is it for that report.
How about your next committee there, Counselor Shi?
Semi-quincentennial committee, there is no report for that at this time.
Mr. January. Special Town Projects, Counselor Neal.
Thank you, President Bella. We just concluded all of our December activities, and our next upcoming event will probably be our Black History,
Very good.
and that's all.
Moving on to Department and Commission reports, Lake County Solid Waste Management District, Counselor Neal.
Thank you, President Bella. We had a meeting scheduled for December the 16th, which was a makeup meeting from November, and they had to cancel the meeting again, lack of participation from the other towns and cities that are involved. I think it's a total of 28, and we need 14, and they cannot manage to get 14. So I'm waiting to hear back from them to see about another date, so they're really discouraged with what's going on now. Yeah.
Thank you. NERC,
Next meeting is January 16th. That is all I have to report.
thank you. Fire Territory Board, Counselors Neal and Hardaway.
No report.
No report.
Department reports, Lisa Roberts, Parks and Recreation.
We pretty much covered it when we talked about the Dina Barber White Community Center. The flooring is the main issue right now.
Very good.
And we need to get that taken care of.
Police Department, Chief Nucis.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we close the year off, we're going to be flirting in right around, well, actually, probably by tomorrow afternoon, we'll be at the 30,000 mile calls for service mark.
Wow.
We've had a pretty busy year. Fortunately, we haven't had, I'm scared to announce this because I don't want to jinx us and knock on wood, but this is the first time we've had only one homicide for a whole year. And this is, once again, part of our plan that we're going to continue to implement for the next year. So if you can see, some of you that follow Region News Source and some of the other news agencies on social media, Merrillville Police Department's been actually very busy the last couple weeks. Last night, we had an incident where we had a barricaded armed subject who had a warrant out of Illinois for being armed and dangerous and committing some crimes. But he decided that he didn't want to comply with his family's orders. And needless to say, barricaded himself. We ended up having to call our SWAT team, get him out. It was resolved safely. Then we had some other people who disagreed with a bill at a local restaurant and decided to get into a fight with restaurant staff and shoot off some rounds. But these are the kind of calls that we've been answering lately. These are the kind of calls that we've been having to put out. And knock on wood, so far, everything's been working out for us. For 2025, we were looking at implementing some new practices that we want to do. And I'm hoping that as soon as we get it all together, I'll be able to announce it to everybody. Last but not least, there has been an increase in spam and fraud calls. They are, it's relentless. I myself am probably getting about 20 to 30 of them a day, where they're calling and trying to tell you that they're a family member or that you're in trouble or that one thing or another and trying to get you to buy some type of Visa cards or Bitcoin or whatever it is, and they want you to pay them or else they're telling you you're going to go to jail. So I just want to make it clear, nobody will ever call you and demand that you pay them over the phone, you're going to go to jail. That is something that I want to emphasize, and it's something that we've been seeing a lot of this month. So that's all I have for now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. Planning and Building Department, Mrs. Shine.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning and Building Department is in the process of renewing our contractor's license for this year. We are preparing our end-of-the-year report, and we're also setting goals for our 2025 building year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Street Department, Steve King.
I think I'm good. I don't have anything further to say. I think Councilwoman Uselak covered everything.
Great, thank you. Mr. Griffin, Town Manager.
Mr. President, members of the council, Madam Vice President, Mr. January, you have before you the monthly staff report for the month of December. Unless there's questions about that, I will be proud to be seated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you all. Moving on to general orders tonight. We have the ordinance 24-45. It's an ordinance of the Town of Maryville providing that the zoning ordinance of Town of Maryville, Lake County, and to be amended, changing the established C5 Office and Research Zoning District classification to a CIS, Commercial Industrial Special Zoning District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Counselor Uselak. Open for discussion. Sheila, anything to add on this?
No, this was approved actually twice. It was advertised twice, and it was approved December 17th at the Plan Commission meeting with 4 present, 3 absent, and 4 approved.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, did you have something?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, this is the ordinance pertaining to Crow Holdings, correct?
No.
This is not?
Yes.
Well,
This-
the property there, yes.
Correct,
Yes.
right. So one of the things that I mentioned, and this is nothing against Matt with Crow Holdings, I believe the town has enough warehouses and storage units, and I'm sure they're going to build a huge, 3 huge warehouses over there, but it is really showing the lack of vision for the town, because we need much more than warehouses and storage units. We can use some entertainment, and we can use some other things. And as I expressed in our workshop in the back, I don't think that this is the highest and best use for the property, because it's visible on I-65, and it's one of the last properties that is actually available on I-65. And once it is developed, the chances of us doing something else with it down the road are just about dead. We're not going to have any opportunity to bring some entertainment and things that we need in the area. So that's, and then also this is going to tie into the resolution to actually get tax abatements too, which I know many people, including myself, are adamantly opposed to. But I'm not a council person. I just thought I'd share my opinion.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Mr. January, call the roll, please.
I do have.
Counselor Shi.
Yes. So, listening to both workshops and now, there's no other space, is what you're saying, to create? No, to create entertainment for the town, because the area that Crow is going to, that is proposing to go to, isn't it already surrounded by warehouses and storage units?
This is on 73rd Street going down from Mississippi. So starting at 73rd Street and then going south on Mississippi, and it would be directly across the proposed convention center. So if Hobart were to get that convention center, this would really potentially be some very valuable land. It's already valuable, even if they don't get it. It's valuable because it's just so visible. And not only is it visible, it's in our shopping corridor. It's got shopping, it's got hotels, it's got restaurants, it's got what people are looking for. The only thing that we don't have is the previous Star Plaza Hotel. We don't have anything to draw people to the area anymore, and the state recognized that, and that's why they're actually proposing to put a convention center either here or in Gary, because we're missing out on revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And Merrillville used to be on the map because of the Star Plaza Hotel. Recently, we were at my family's house, my wife's family's house on the west side for Christmas. And I was talking to the people there, and they're like, yeah, I used to be out in Merrillville all the time at the Star Plaza Hotel. I knew nothing about it, I guess.
Mr. President, would it be okay if the ward councilman commented on all this, or is that?
If Mr. January's.
All right. First and
Well, I'm not
foremost,
finished.
there's probably people out in the audience that
I'm not
think,
finished yet. Please, I'll let you talk, because I'm not trying to cut you off. But Merrillville used to be on the map for the things that it not only provided for the residences through Star Plaza, but right now the only thing we're on the map for is warehouses and storage units. And I think that we really need to rethink that, because people need more than just being able to put that stuff up. And I know just from a land use standpoint, it's not the highest and best use. But they are paying more than a fair price for it based off of a warehouse, without a doubt. They're paying, I think, did you say $120,000 per acre? Yes, sir. Most of us couldn't afford that, but they can. And but this is also, again, tied to a tax abatement. And unlike the other tax abatements, we will be getting something out of it. Thank you for clarifying that earlier. It's just that it's not bringing any real value to the town.
Okay.
So I have a question. That land has been sitting there
That was
pretty much dormant for about 30 years.
Mhm.
So in that time, couldn't someone have come in with retail, restaurant? But now no one has, and somebody is actually about to buy it and and put it back on the tax roll, pay us more than the $2,100 that we're currently getting, and there's a problem?
So
Well, again, Eric, we gave you time, okay, please. I'm
ahead.
the ward councilman.
Go ahead, talk.
Let me answer Shauna and everyone's questions.
Talk.
First and foremost, this ordinance had its public hearing at the Plan Commission. That's why there's no public comment right now. A zone change in Indiana is a one reading by the town council as the legislative body. Keisha, to answer your question and maybe Shauna's, this property is now owned by Tom and Lisa Killar, as well as the Modrak family. The Modrak family has owned it for a long time, right on the corner of 73rd and Mississippi. Jean Halstead just passed away about 2 years ago. She bequeathed it to Tom and Lisa Killar. They own both sides of I-65. They decided to sell it because it was Zone C5. And I tend to agree with Keisha and hopefully the rest of the council. We're not in a position to tell private property owners they can or cannot sell their property. I'm not going to be their councilman. I'm going to get the phone call if it doesn't go through and they say, hey, Sean, you just cost me $6.6 million in land. You want to take that call, or does anybody else want to take that call? I'm not going to take that call. I'm going to support this. This is a good project. Not only that, but as we get down the road with the incentive to Crow Holdings, they've proven time and time and time and time, 6 times again, what they do for this town. They gave Ed Yerga $350,000 to buy new fire radios. I don't see any other business doing that. They've put 1.2 million square feet of the largest company in the world in our backyard. So this is absolutely a no-brainer. Now, Shauna, to your point of is there other developable property? Yes. North of the Carpenters Union, there's land available. North of 69th Avenue with I-65 frontage is available for development up to the railroad, okay? The Star Plaza Theater right now is under a letter of intent with a developer out of Indianapolis for their 40 acres. They have come to meet with Angie, Michael, Sheila, Steve, Matt Lake. The whole development team has met with them. They've asked us what we want to see out there. We said, you guys have got to propose this. It's going to be a multi-use, mixed-use retail, restaurant, hotel development. I don't know what that entails. I recommend it to them, Topgolf, and possibly bringing the Children's Museum up from Indianapolis and doing a Northwest Indiana branch of that. That's the kind of stuff we need. But to sit there and say this is the last piece of property that's open for development is false. It's completely false. So again, with that, Mr. President, I'm going to call for the vote, please.
Very well. Mr. January, roll call.
Sure. All right, where are we at? 24:45.
Excuse me, but it's not a no-brainer.
There's no
Public comment, sir.
Comment right now. No.
Sorry.
Here,
Not right now. Not
Mr.
right now.
President, I asked for a roll call vote.
Okay, just wait till it's that time. Wait till it's time. Please do not pass it out. Wait till it's time, please.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Just follow the rules.
Out of order.
Don't be out of order. The
Chris,
MCA,
we'll get her
we
from
need
you
you
later.
guys to abide by the rules.
So this
wait.
is part of the issue, though, and you got to understand.
Mr.
the-
President, I called for the
I'm
vote.
about to do the roll call.
Calling the roll.
Roll call vote.
I didn't stop you.
Well, go ahead, call the roll.
I'll roll.
Call the roll.
But their frustration is the fact that they don't get a chance to say anything. And-
Well,
and
now
it was
is
given
not
fact
the
that it was
time,
Plan
though. Not
Commission.
in the middle of a vote. It's not
Right.
the time. That was
Right. Most
inappropriate.
people didn't know that.
And the public comment was already called for.
They've been here long enough. They should know when we do comments, and that, right now, that was out of order. So let's just follow the orders.
All right. Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella,
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to another first reading ordinance 24-49. This is an ordinance to fix and establish the wage and salary rates of the elected officers and the non-elected officers and the employees of the town of Merrillville, Indiana. Mr. Griffin, anything to add?
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the council, Mr. January, I just want to go over this. It would be great if we could suspend the rules and consider it the same meeting. The need for this is twofold. First, the only general increase to wages and salaries that will be provided for is the one that is in consequence of collective bargaining with the police department. But we feel that the council has to identify what that 3% is. This ordinance will do that. Secondly, although when you adopt, we expect or hope, the amendments to the personnel policy, which is an ordinance, this also adopts by reference the 3% that we're going to give to all other full-time civilian workers, which is, instead of them having withheld post-tax from their pay, the 3% contribution to their pension. As you know, in Indiana, the in-pers pension is a hybrid. There's a defined benefit component that we pay on, and then there's a defined contribution component, which is like an annuity. The law says the employee must pay it, but the employer may pay it. We're asking that you begin effective December 29th, the pay period beginning then, allow that be paid by the town. That'll be pre-tax. So workers will see in their first pay that that's not being withheld, and it will feel like more than a 3% increase. And we're waiting on some other developments in the hopes of being able to do more for our workers, but we know that that's also been budgeted for 2025. And lastly, the Personnel Committee had a meeting some months ago to deal with an issue for the police chiefs about an equity. One of the equities was repaired with regard to their relationship to the public safety leaders in fire, but it was supposed to go back to 2023. This ordinance, if adopted, will make that equitable change as well. If there's any specific questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them. Again, if you don't pass it this evening and simply pass on first reading, that can be useful. But January 14th is your next meeting, and that's a long time. And some of the deadlines in here we're hopeful for. Since we're not really changing anything except what I just described to the council, we don't like to make this appeal to you very much, but we're hopeful that you would consider that as well.
Mr. President, I make a motion for discussion.
Motion by Mr. Pettit. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hardaway. Open for discussion.
Mr. President, to Michael, with this ordinance, Michael, it's got the salaries in it. It's
Yes.
financial. Does that have to have a public hearing and be advertised, though?
No, Mr. President and Councilor, it does not. In fact, I don't know where that came from. Wage and salary ordinances for towns can be passed at any time. There is no intention to give increases. As you recall, we had a small ordinance that just dealt with some issues that were in the Park Department that you passed earlier this year, actually a few months ago. We know that your preference is to have in the four corners of one document all the wages. So that's what this does. It would have been enough to just do the police department in this and make the reference in the other line to the in-pers payment. It'll also be taken up in the amendments to the personnel manual. However, we simply added everybody's pay because we know that there is a desirability on the part of the council to have it in a four corners document. That was the only reason. The things that do need to be attended to by the council is actually identifying the 3% number, which this ordinance does for the police department, and also that one repair that I discussed about the equities from 2023 for both the police chief that was in place then, perhaps be our current chief, and the assistant police chief who was in place, who is not there now, but is still working for the department.
Michael, are you saying that they are all going to get a 3% raise and nothing higher?
That's per contract.
Are you asking?
Contract.
Yes, Madam.
We're still under
Councilor
contract.
Uselak, if you're asking about the police department, that is correct, but that is pursuant to their collective bargaining agreement. This is the third of 3 years for this to be enforced. They'll be approaching us, no doubt, to renegotiate that this year, but that's required. So they were going to get this anyway, but 3% could have rounding errors or something like that. I think it's good for the council as a policy body that fixes compensation to take the step of, consistent with that collective bargaining agreement, identify what the 3% means.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hardaway, anything else to add from your committee?
No, Mr. President, thank you.
Any other discussion on this first reading ordinance? Hearing none, Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, motion carries.
Mr. President, motion to suspend the rules and read on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit with a second by Ms. Hardaway to suspend the rules in order to read this ordinance 24-49 on second reading. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. January, roll call.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, it's unanimous. The motion carries to suspend the rules. We will hear ordinance 24-49 on second and final reading. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Hardaway, seconded by Counselor Shi,
Yes.
for approval on second reading. Open for discussion. Is there any public comment on this ordinance 24-49? Seeing none, Mr. January, roll call, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Mr. Griffin, this ordinance is approved.
I thank the council, as do the workforce.
Moving on tonight on second reading ordinances, we have ordinance 24-46. It's an ordinance to amend chapters of the Merrillville Personnel Policy Manual as adopted and codified in sections 2-87 of the Merrillville Municipal Code. Anything else to add to this, Mr. Griffin?
Mr. President, this has been a protracted review process. This is the first year that we took up the portion of the policy manual that required the Human Resource Director and the Town Manager to review for proposed changes. These are mostly changes that add technical requirements. There is now a formal policy for travel that'll be identified that'll apply to elected officers, appointed officers, and employees and officers of the town. There also will be some other minor corrections that we needed to make over the course of the year. This has been reviewed both by the Personnel, Employees, and Policy Committee. It's also been reviewed twice by Council Affairs, and the form that you see it before you, it is in the final form. They're recommending it to you. Absent a specific question about it, we recommend your favor and adoption of this ordinance, please.
What's the council wishes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, seconded by Counselor Shi.
Neal.
Neal.
Counselor Neal. For approval on second reading. Questions or comments? Mr. Griffin, did we do the public comment on this ordinance already?
No.
I don't think so.
Mr. President, your rules don't provide for that. It is elective. If you elect to have them comment on it, you may, but it is not a requirement in state law, and I've not found an express provision of that, at least in the code that I can find online.
Okay, was there any public comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, Mr. January, roll call. This is on ordinance 24-46 on second reading.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, motion carries.
I thank the council.
Moving on tonight to ordinance 24-47. It's an ordinance to amend the Merrillville Municipal Code, to revise by repealing sections 2-150 to 2-155 and creating new sections to incorporate the redevelopment law in force for Indiana, particularly including the provisions regarding the establishment of a redevelopment general fund and a redevelopment capital fund in Merrillville Municipal Code.
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit. Is there a second on this side?
Margie.
Margie.
Counselor Uselak, thank you. Open for discussion. Mr. Pettit, anything to comment about this?
I believe, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, this was something that the State Board of Accounts brought to our attention, did they not?
Mr. President, Councilor Pettit, yes, this was this is in response to a corrective action plan that we prepared in response to some findings that they made in the last external audit. So you really are encouraged to do this. We're not embracing anything new here. It's adopting exactly the language of the state law that governs the redevelopment department and commission. It's just going to incorporate it into our ordinance and expressly make mention of the general fund as well as the capital fund and its uses.
Mr. January, anything else to add?
No.
Any other comments from the council? Roll call vote, please.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella,
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, motion carries. Moving on tonight to resolutions, Resolution 24-44.
Mr. President, you missed one, I believe.
I believe we did that earlier in the meeting.
2848?
Yeah, ordinance
We had the
28.
public hearing, but I don't know that we voted on it, did we,
Oh.
Mr. January?
You are correct.
We didn't. 24.
We held off on that. Thank you, Mr. Pettit. Ordinance 24-48, thank you for the correction. This is the additional monies in excess of the annual budget. Did you have a motion for us, Mr. Pettit?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Hardaway, second by Counselor Neal. Questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. January, roll call.
Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards,
Aye.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella.
Aye.
7 in
7-0.
favor.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move on to resolutions 24-44. It's a preliminary resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Merrillville, Indiana, declaring an area in the town as an economic revitalization area and approving a real property tax abatement for Chai Acquisitions LP, also known as Crow Holdings Development.
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Counselor Shi, for approval of Resolution 24-44. Let's call you up to the podium, please.
Chris?
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, council members. I'm happy to clarify a few things. I see there are folks in the room. Good conversation with Mr. January. I think I want to start just by trying to outline 3 different points. So 1, reputation, doing what we say we're going to do, and having a track record since 2019 of doing that. It's been a very good working relationship with the town of Merrillville. To date, we've developed over 250 acres, 6 buildings, to the tune of $271 million. And what our business how our business operates on, we go build on spec. So we don't have someone to occupy a building. We go spend money. We've got to go seek equity partners and lenders. Take that chance that if we build a building, that somebody's going to show up and lease it from us. Biggest risk we took here, obviously, the 1 million-foot building. First one in all of Northwest Indiana. Amazon thankfully came by and leased that building. Their sign's going up now. That ended up winning Speculative Building of the Year in the entire Chicago industrial market. So just give you an idea of what that thing costs to pay the loan every month. It's about $400,000. So the longer it went vacant, you're writing a check to $400,000 to a bank. The second thing is separating highest and best use. Thank you again for our conversation. So the rezoning, in my mind, is separate from the tax abatement part, and I'll tell you why. So the rezoning, very few communities have access to a major interstate. A lot of people don't like trucks. I see that all the time. In this location, you can get trucks on and off of I-65 and distribute product throughout the entire Midwest without driving by anybody's house. We all want our packages on our doorstep the next day. The logistics of making that happen, it requires the van depot, in a Merrillplex. It requires a 1,000,000-foot distribution building all over the country, right? So a huge network. So appreciate the rezoning. And for that reason, I do think it's the highest and best use because ultimately the market dictates that. I would point you to the Merrillplex. Nothing happened from 2008 to 2019. We showed up in 2019. There was a tax incentive courtesy of Pat Reardon, who was here at the time. In 18 months that followed, all of the Merrillplex was accounted for. We built another building. Domino's came along, got tax abatement, built a building. We then said, hey, this works. People want to be here. Let's go across the street. We got 195 acres, silos at Sanders Farm, put 4 buildings there, including the 1,000,000-foot spec building. Panduit Corporation did a build-a-suit. So they considered DeKalb. They're based in Tinley Park. They need the financial incentive to come here. The labor force here is strong, but it's not 11 million people in Chicago. And I do want to clarify, we don't pay the property taxes. The tenants do, so it's not Crow paying the taxes. They're passed through the same way that in office lease you pay the taxes. Same idea in industrial. And then thirdly, tax abatement. The town's not losing money. We're not taking money from the town and giving it all to a tenant. The deduction fee agreement during the abatement period, the town gets 15% of all savings. On a normal fully assessed tax bill, the town's only getting 25.2% of that. And so during the abatement period, next year with 5 buildings, we're going to pay to the town $391,000 in property tax out of a total $562,000. So what we're talking about, and obviously we'll have a more lively debate at town council when public hearing is for this, but for the 3 buildings we're proposing, we'll build them next year, or we hope to build them, complete them in 26, lease them up. The tax bill will go from $2,198, which is what it will remain, because if there's no tax abatement, there's no one come to build anything. Look at this, look at the convention center site. Those roads went in 2007. It's still just sitting there, overgrown. No one's coming to put up, whatever it is. Also, I heard Topgolf. You don't want a Topgolf. There's lights 150 feet high, lighting up the neighborhoods. And it's just brutal to be next to. But at the end of the day, you can get trucks on and off the highway. The town gets a ton of money through the deduction fee agreement. And it's something that tenants have all said, that's the reason that we're coming here. We need the incentive to make that jump from Illinois to Indiana. With that, I'll open up for questions.
Go ahead. Any questions from the council? So, Mr. Griffin, the,
Yes, sir.
No, it's,
In terms of leasing buildings, yes.
so guys, we're going to do the public comments and a public hearing.
He didn't understand the rules though, sir.
So we're not going to go through the finances here of this company. That's not what we're here for. Mr. Griffin, does a tax abatement, a process take away, or does it increase taxes for homeowners?
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the council, Mr. January, it does not. It is, interestingly, it's got the worst of all possible names because it sounds like it's doing something it really isn't doing. It just delays the addition of the improvements that are going to come on. And actually, the statutory reference to it is the economic revitalization area, which is what you're determining to do, at least have the process begin. It doesn't put us at risk. It does not raise taxes whatsoever. It just delays the coming on of the improvement to allow whatever barriers to investment, which Mr. Cruz is sharing with us, to get the Illinois people who are interested in investing in here. Their barrier was whatever the abatement is arresting for them, and that made it possible for them to bring their economic development to us consistent with our plan. So they do sound bad. I wish that they were not developed by a marketer because it's the wrong name. But it doesn't do some of what people think it does, and I understand why they might think it, because it's called what it's called.
Mr. President, again, I will remind my colleagues and the audience, this is the preliminary resolution. There will be an advertised public hearing. Angie Chilcott and Tom Pittman will advertise this for a public hearing on January 14th. Mr. Cruz will be back. All the residents can come in, ask their questions.
You gave this guy 6 minutes to advocate.
He's the petitioner,
He's
sir.
the
We always
petitioner,
give
Brian.
petitioners a chance to speak about their project, Brian. Thank you.
This is not the BZA section of the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. President, call for the vote.
So, I do want to add something. All right. So, and you can save your money, because we can get another attorney. All right. So, first of all, I want to read something that Chris provided that he doesn't have a chance to mention. Talking about the fiscal impact of local property tax abatement in Indiana. This is published by Ball State University, Michael Hicks, and Dagny Falk. And in summary, what they said, there is no strong relationship between abatement and the growth of assessed value over time. The implication is that, on average, the use of abatements as a tool for growing property tax base is not particularly effective. These findings cast doubt on the ability of Indiana's systems of property tax abatement to increase the tax base or control property tax rates. And so I wanted to read that. I mean, he's got several pages, got like a little encyclopedia. Thanks for sharing it, Chris. But also, just in regards to answering Councilwoman Hardaway. Yes, I don't know how long this property has been sitting here. I've been in the area for 10 years. And one of the things that got me to run for the treasurer's office is every time I kept coming to a meeting, it seemed like another abatement was being given out to someone like it's candy. And I was deeply offended by this, being a business person, and knowing that I'm not getting any tax breaks whatsoever, and I owe the IRS to this moment. So, and the state of Indiana, we're not getting any tax breaks as small businesses. But the thing that I wanted to point out, one of the reasons this property sat on the market as long as it did, and the property, the town of Merrillville is 53 years old. The primary reason, I would say, is because some people just don't have a vision for the area. Maybe because the demographics are changing, they don't see the value in Merrillville. And one of the things I've been very good at is always recognizing an ugly duckling, a house that needs some work or a property that needs some work, and fixing it up and bringing it up to value. Well, Merrillville has got a ton of value, but developers don't necessarily recognize that value right now. It's going to be up to us to develop it. Whatever parcels of land that are still available, we got to buy them, and we got to develop it. Because otherwise, it's just going to sit on the market and nothing is going to happen. And you'll be saying the same thing when somebody else comes along and say, hey, we can put this here, we can put a garbage dump here, and we'll start getting some money from it. But in reality, that's not what we need. We got to bring what we want to the table. Nobody is just going to give it to us. So I hope that answers your question. The reason it's that is because we have to do something about it. We can't rely on
That's not the
somebody
reason
else.
it's sat, Eric.
No.
Again,
No,
as the ward councilman for 21 years, I knew Gene Halstead personally.
Okay.
Gene did not want to sell the property.
Okay.
Get the meeting on course, please.
Jean didn't want to sell the property. She bequeathed it to the couple that Matt is dealing with. That's why it sat vacant. Don't use an excuse of,
I'm not
we didn't
talking-
bring anything to the table. These
what
are
I-
private property owners' interests, Eric, that they
I
can
totally
decide to
understand
sell
that.
when they want to.
I totally understand that, just like the
Well,
Catholic
don't
Church
say
is
that
selling
it
their
sat
300
because
acres.
we didn't bring anything to the table. She didn't want us to bring anything to the table.
Somebody was
She's
selling
still up in heaven, pissed off at NDOT for what they did to her mom and dad for putting I-65 to
Call the roll.
Somebody
Eric,
was selling
call the
something that
roll.
we could have bought and put something other than
Mr.
a storage
January,
unit
call the roll,
or
please.
that.
Again, call the vote.
So,
It went to heaven.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Cruz. Call the roll, please.
yeah. All right, Vice President Neal,
Yes.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards, Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Yes.
Councilman Pettit,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hardaway,
Yes.
President Bella,
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Moving on tonight to Resolution 2446.
45.
45.
Excuse me. It's a resolution of the fiscal body of Town of Maryville fixing the official faithful performance bond of the municipal fiscal officer pursuant to Indiana Code 5-4-1. Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, it is incumbent upon the board to annually fix the bond of the fiscal officer. There is a formula that is set forth in the statute that deals with this. The maximum the minimum can be for a fiscal officer is $30,000 for every million that we had in receipts of the first full year, which would not be for 24, but for 23. We add an additional $30,000 until it reaches $300,000, which is the cap. And based on our our revenues that we received in fiscal year 2023, which were $59,261,086, it is incumbent on the board to authorize a bond of $300,000. And I'm so glad we're doing it tonight. It's just in time. He needs it just before the fiscal year starts.
Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Uselak, second by Counselor Shi. For Resolution 24-45, excuse me. Any other discussion from the council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 24-46. This is a resolution providing for the transfer of appropriation balances from and among major budget classifications. Mr. Griffin.
Excuse me.
Mr. President, members of the council, it has no net effect on the overall budget for the funds that are involved. The funds that are involved are departments within the general fund, the motor vehicle highway restricted fund, and the cumulative capital development fund. And all we're doing is moving from one object of expense, which is between 100, 200, 300, or 400 series, and moving it to a corresponding object of expense. The net change is nil. So there's no increase in spending. We're just putting it in the proper category to satisfy year-end expenses that we're going to be facing right in time.
Thank you,
again.
Mr. Griffin. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Uselak, Counselor Shi, second.
Neal.
Open for discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Moving on to our last resolution, Resolution 2447. This is authorizing a temporary interfund loan or transfer pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-8-4. Anything to add here, Mr. Griffin?
Mr. President, I believe that the text of the resolution is straightforward. We're just having temporary loans in two funds, Record Perpetuation Fund and also in the Parks Non-Reverting Operating Fund.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, seconded by Mrs. Uselak. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Is there any BZA or large gathering actions tonight?
No reports tonight, Mr. President.
Very good. There's no old business before us. We do have new business. It's the election of the council president and vice president for 2025. I will open up nominations for president for 2025.
Mr. President, I nominate Rick Bella.
Second.
We have a nomination for myself. Thank you. Any other nominations?
I nominate myself.
Counselor Shi? Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll call the roll, Mr. January, and just please say the last name of the person you want to vote for.
Just a second. Vice President Neal.
I will vote for she.
These are all signed.
Councilwoman Haynes Edwards.
I will vote for myself.
Councilwoman Chandler Felton,
She.
Councilwoman Uselak,
Bella.
Councilman Pettit,
Bella.
Councilwoman Hardaway. President Bella.
I'll vote for myself. Thank you.
4 in favor of Bella, 3 for she.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to the vice president position for 2025. We'll open up nominations.
Mr. President, I nominate Rhonda Neal.
Mrs. Neal. Any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, I recommend we just have a motion to close nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Counselor Neal.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, guys, moving on to public comment tonight. State your name and address for the record, and we allow 3 minutes for comments.
Hello, my name's Dan Brown. I live at 9192 Lane Street in Merrillville. I'd like to comment on the situation on the 73rd development. I've been a resident for over 40 years of the town of Merrillville. I've been involved in the construction industry for more than 50. I've participated in every aspect of the construction industry, from planning, development, building buildings from dirt to drapes. And I am currently the building inspector for the town of Merrillville. I remember when Merrillville was the last, and some of you older councilmen, correct me if I'm wrong, was the last community in this area. They refused to give tax abatement. Everybody else was giving it. And I sat here and watched this town do nothing. I watched every other community in Lake County grow and prosper. And initially I thought these guys really got it together. They're not going to give tax abatement. But it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. The reality of it is, and I've been involved in a lot of it, that property is never going to be developed by anybody who doesn't get tax abatement, period. I know, I've been living here for 40. I lived in Lake County for my whole life. Guess what? There's never been anything on that property. We have an opportunity to make a development go and prosper and reduce our tax base. And yet, tax abatement is a reality of everything. Used to be the only one who didn't get a tax abatement was a casino, because you had to get public support, and the way to get public support is pay taxes. But that's not even the case anymore. A casino's not going to go there without tax abatement. So the reality of it is, and one other thing, and I'll sit down and shut up, I take offense to the fact, Mr. January, you keep downgrading this town as a second-class citizen to Dyer, to Sherrville. How much economic growth? I know for a fact. I know the numbers. We're kicking all their butts. And it's for developments like this that allows us to do that. A tax abatement, I do the planning reviews for the building department. I know what they pay in building permit fees. And what they pay in building permit fees alone will exceed 10 years of the taxes paid on that vacant property. And when they start paying taxes, I didn't interrupt you. I appreciate if you don't interrupt me. I'll sit down and you could have your say. But we need this for the town. I speak this as a resident of this town. I love this town. I told my wife, we're having my wake in my basement, because I ain't going nowhere. And I'll sit down.
All right now.
Eric,
Okay.
not doing back and forth. Not doing back and forth. It's public comment.
It may be public comment.
Public comment.
I got to address,
Correct.
I have never,
order.
ever once downgraded Merrillville. I've got over $1 million invested in this town myself.
Mr.
I
January,
have
please.
never, ever
Chris is losing our time. Let's not be rude to
downgraded this
Chris. Go
town.
ahead, sir.
I would move if I didn't
Go
think
ahead,
the
sir.
town was worth nothing.
Chris Holst, 800 West 73rd Avenue. Actually, I'd like to comment on that. Mr. January is not downgrading us. He wants better for us. We can all disagree on on how that happens, but I assure you, this man wants what's best for this community. That's unquestionable. Now, understand how this property got rezoned. I understand. You want to sell it. I get all that. Everyone has the rights. Folks, everything you're saying sounds perfect. As business people, that's everything you would want. But as a citizen of this town, I have to tell you, we're getting the table scraps. The tax abatement, first of all, I have some easy reading for anyone who wanted. I'll leave it on the table. It's a study from Hicks and Falk on the impact of tax abatements on towns. If you care to read it, I'll leave it up there for you. But in the short of it, they tell you that they don't perform as advertised. Are they bad? No. But they don't add up to what they are advertised. That's the problem. Over the last few months, remember the uproar when you tried to increase the percentage on the tax levy? The town is needing more cash. You turned around and we added a 1% food and beverage tax to our small businesses in this town. And when you talk to these small businesses, that's a big deal. 1% on a small a shop like Simon Says, or you add it, you name it. 1% hurts their bottom line. So folks, we talk about tax abatements as a good thing, but what that does is it may defer it, but it takes that burden for the time that you have that, and it stresses it on our small businesses and our taxpayers. Because although our taxes may not be going up, we're getting table scraps when we should be getting the full meal. Thank you.
Hi, Amy Schwalmer, 6950 Delaware Street. So I'm in Pettit's ward, and so I know 73rd in Mississippi pretty well. I will say putting something on there, especially where then it's gonna have that truck traffic, that intersection in general, there's been a lot of accidents. It's not supposed to be 73rd as a highway, but a lot of people treat it like a highway. There are a lot of houses all the way down 73rd, not on Mississippi specifically. However, changing it so that we allow those warehouses, that means truck traffic. If we're already having consistent car accidents, I almost got hit a couple different times in that intersection from people blowing the light. I literally went over to that light the other day, and a car was flipped over because he was speeding, and he blew the light and he crashed. And the other day, we had another one, and I saw a picture of all the police officers blocking the intersection because there's an issue in that intersection. So if we're putting a warehouse over there, the issue is then gonna be, we're gonna also add in not just the cars that are speeding, but now we're gonna add in truck traffic. 73rd, right now, they're not supposed to have trucks there, I believe. And that's because the bridge is not able to support the trucks either. So putting trucks on that unstable bridge and consistently going over that bridge is gonna weaken the bridge over 65. And eventually, it'll collapse. We don't want that either. So we need to think about the fact that that intersection right now, with all the accidents that just happened in literally less than 2 weeks, and I've known of two accidents officially, no, 3, and multiple that have almost happened with me involved in it because people are blowing those lights. Adding a warehouse with extra traffic in that area is gonna be extremely dangerous. It's already dangerous enough. We already have someone who has a YouTube page, who lives in the one of the corner houses there, live streaming it almost because it's constantly accidents in there, and they just figured they'd put a camera there so they could show the world all the accidents. The fact that he has to do that, that means it's not safe to put a warehouse in that area and increase the traffic flow, especially with trucks. So I think we need to just reevaluate where we're gonna put the warehouse, because that area is not a good area to put it there. Thanks.
Brian Messarch, 201 East 68th Place. I'd like to thank Chris. He had some very interesting reading out of Ball State University. I've done some tax abatements and TIF zones. They're a thing of the past. They actually cost most towns and most communities money. On average, the small business owner and the resident and homeowners have to pay money. They don't get anything out of it. Why does a $12 billion company need a tax abatement? This is Merrillville, Indiana. We have the lowest tax rate in Lake County. We have 30 in I-65. We're primo. We're golden. People want that. We shouldn't be given a tax abatement. We should be charging a premium. You want to be in shop here? There's no reason why the police or the fire department should be begging for money to add people. We should have more cops and more firemen than any other community around here. Our businesses, and it's just like the table scraps that we hear about. We shouldn't be begging for money. We should have a parks department that is swinging like kids don't know what to do. Are they going to be in this program or that program? We should have all the equipment, all the fancy toys for our first responders, and we don't. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. You know who made Merrillville second class? Yeah. We can have a difference of opinion. You want to bring your numbers? Bring your numbers. Let's sit down. Let's look at the numbers. Because the numbers aren't good, because there are university studies that say the opposite of what you're saying. We need to come together with consensus. And Mr. Pettit, most of the Merrillville Change Agency is from Ward 6. Most of us disagree with you. You are our representative. You should be speaking for us. It's not the other way around. And that is really what the problem is with the residents of Merrillville. We say it repeatedly, and we get frustrated because there is no chance for us to have input, no chance for us to ask questions, no chance for us to get explanation. And because we don't have any of this and we don't have the numbers, we get to make up our own things, and then we get frustrated because we don't even have a conversation. We've asked for a Q&A. We don't get the Q&A. What do you expect us to do? It always has to be a fight. There can't just be a round table. Mr. Griffin, tax abatements do cost people, because if it didn't cost, we wouldn't be asking our residents to pay higher property taxes. At what point in time do we just have a symposium, we come together, we talk about the numbers, and we come to a consensus like this is the reason why it has to be? That would ease the frustration.
President Bella, can I make a statement to Brian? Brian, are you opposed to the tax abatements, or is it that you don't want the warehouse, or is it a combination of the two?
Opposed to the tax abatements or what?
Are you opposed to the tax abatements, or are you opposed to them building a warehouse there, or is it a combination of the two?
I was actually the one who fought when Crow wanted to build warehouses in my neighborhood behind to the side of the high school. And I'm the one who figured out that the bridge on the 73rd Avenue is not rated for semi-truck traffic. I don't want... My thing is I don't think that warehouses are the best use. They don't generate the most jobs, and they don't generate the most value for our town. That could be an opinion, and I could be swayed if I was given evidence. What I have now is I'm on the no side. I don't want warehouses there. I think we should be following something where we are looking for other things. It's the same thing as a warehouse is nothing more than a storage facility. And we've heard some of our other council people rail against storage facilities. Well, a warehouse is nothing more than a big storage facility. So at what point in time do we start? I grew up in Merrillville. I've been around Merrillville for my 53 years. Merrillville used to be the spot. You wanted entertainment, you came to Merrillville. You wanted shopping, you came to Merrillville. You wanted anything to do, you came to Merrillville. You wanted a 4th of July parade, you came to Merrillville's 4th of July parade. You wanted fireworks, you were at Hidden Lake Park in Merrillville watching fireworks because we were, back in the day, we were it. Now, Crown Point, Sherrville, Hobart, people in Merrillville go to these communities. That's what I want.
Okay.
I want us to be back to where that is.
Okay, and I
One
just
step
want
at a
to
time.
quickly address another statement that you made. We have received the emails. I am in total agreement. We do need to have some type of roundtable and discussion. We've talked about it, and we will be getting back to further to see what we can do about that. And my very last statement is thank you for my Christmas card. I appreciate it.
You're absolutely welcome. I hope everyone had an awesome. I want. You said something to me. I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before. Why does everything have to be a fight? And I think that you're right. Maybe we should reassess everything being a fight. Let's have a discussion, and then if we can't resolve things through the discussion, then we'll have the fight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi, my name is Jessica Nummy, and I'm actually here for something non-related to everything that's being spoken about right now. So I am in the world of rescue. I have met with Chief Nusis here in regards to the overpopulated issue of animals being discarded in multiple areas, but I know Merrillville has been getting hit as well. He's reached out, and we've talked to try to help get dogs, animals placed so that they're not being held, since there's really not a true animal control division going right now here or ability to help with that. So with that being said, I have a plan that I would like to propose that we could team up with rescue and try to help with the animal control issue and hope that we can come to a resolution, because there are several regions that do not have good animal control divisions, and that's why there's another problem of where we can't have placement for these animals. Rescue is just overcrowded. We have not seen it this bad in years. I've been in rescue for about 12 years, and it is overwhelming right now. Like, we are all hurting in the world of rescue. But I think we need to team together and kind of come up with a plan together. So if I could meet with some individuals and pitch this plan, I would be very happy to give you my ideas.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pablo Payan, 8031 Massachusetts Street. So I'm not completely against tax abatements. I've been pretty vocal about that on Facebook as well. I think that they do attract business to towns. But my problem is that they should be used for startup developers, small businesses, not giants that made $12.6 billion in 2024. Now, you said you've been very successful since 2019. Why do we need to keep giving tax abatements? You've been successful enough. You're in the billions. And I understand there's a risk, but that's why you're risking your money, not ours. This risk should come from you. And Sean, you said you've been here for 21 years. It's been apparent that you haven't listened to the Merrillville residents, but you've been really listening to the corporate for 21 years, giving away these tax abatements. If you guys don't follow the studies that universities do saying tax abatements are terrible for towns and cities, especially towns that need the money. If you guys don't follow the studies, then what do you guys follow? Do you guys read any studies? Do you guys research tax abatements? Apparently not, because we passed how many now? You know, fire department needs money, police department needs money. They gave $300,000, $400,000 to the fire department. What's next? They're going to come to the police and say, hey, here's $400,000. Thanks for that, tell the council, thanks for that abatement. I mean, this is a powerful company. They were able to buy Thomas Clarence, Supreme Court Justice. You don't think they'll come and buy you guys?
know I get it closer so that you can hear me. So, Sabina Miller, 3120 West 75th Place. First of all, thank you for some of the explanations. I heard you say that really only 25.2% of the taxes being paid go to the town. But I believe those taxes do not go to the town, if I don't misunderstand that, they go to the redevelopment committee, or whatever fund that goes into. So one thing that I know I've asked a few years back is I would like to understand better, like where these funds come in, how much comes in, and then where they're being spent. And that, to me, is still outstanding. So I fully support what you guys were just talking about with the Q&A, and if people could actually be coming equipped with some of the answers, some of the information that we've been asking for quite some time, that would really be helpful to me. The one thing that concerns me about the tax abatements is that a warehouse, and I think Big Lots has one, we had a big thing, I believe that Big Lots was moving into one of those. Now, Big Lots supposedly is only going to have 2 left in whatever, the area or something. Does that mean if they move out, they may have gotten away with paying next to no taxes, and then we're going to extend the tax abatement timeframes, and the next person moving in can do the same thing? I mean, we may never make it to 10 years, depending on how long the tenants stay. The other part that is also another concern, so we were talking about there's a major interstate access and no homes to drive by. And I know you were saying there are no real homes on Mississippi, but there are. Drive down again and see, it's right across the street from what the proposed site is. And the house with the cameras is across the street where then the windmill is. So there are certainly homes to drive by. Not a whole lot, but there still are. The other direction, Mississippi, I think, has a whole lot less. But my concern, and it has been for a long time, is really people go anywhere to have a good time before they come to Merrillville, and unless they go to a restaurant or shopping. We all know that. I mean, we go to Griffith, we go to Crown Point, Christmas lights. So I'm driving around the square in Crown Point, and my husband is originally from Crown Point, and I said, oh, how does that compare to the Merrillville lights? Well, oops, we don't have any. Because we have maybe a few trees here and there in town, but we don't have what the other cities have. Go to Hobart, go to Valpo. I go for concerts to Hobart. I go for concerts to Griffith and for the art shows. I'll go anywhere, but I have no place here really to do the same thing. And that's my appeal, that we start doing something for the community like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Edward Scott, 15 West 71st Place. As far as these warehouses, it's going on 73rd. Which way are the trucks going to be going? Because everyone that lives here knows Mississippi and 30 gets backed up. Is there going to be an address for the increase of truck traffic? Are they going to be making the right, heading south to get the I-65? Or is there going to be a stoplight so they can go north? Just when we ever have the open comment about this, if someone could explain that. Because that will be a lot of truck traffic, and we all know Mississippi and 30, that'll get backed up all the way past Lowe's. And if we start adding a lot of truck traffic that way, is there anything going to be done to address that intersection with this going in? That was all.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gene Velasco. I am the judge of the Merrillville Town Court. And I just want to thank Clerk Treasurer Eric January for his part in upholding his statutory authority to be able to vote in the event of a tie vote at the council. That's what the law provides. That's what was ruled on. I'll bet as I stand here that none of you who sit in the council have gotten a copy of the court order. All the issues raised by your attorney were raised in the litigation. They were dealt with in the litigation, and now a decision was made. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it is irrelevant. Point is that going forward, to appeal the decision. And I know, because as you know, I've been appealing and doing stuff for 5 years. It's amazing, isn't it? 5 years since I first came here, it's been nothing but a fight. So now we added one more element, and that element's gonna be that instead of dealing with 2 law firms fighting this all the way and back to the Supreme Court, it's gonna be 3 3 law firms, okay? I have nothing against lawyers making money, okay, as you know, because I've been in practice for nearly 50 years. But it's something you might want to think about. You know, some of the things that we missed about, if we did in fact close the court, now they're out, okay, for now, okay? So, you know, truancy court and all that, under the order that basically was granted Friday, as council said, is, you know, the application of the keeping the court open was made instanter, which means if the court doesn't like what we do going forward, it's gonna find somebody in contempt. That's all I have to say. Okay, but I appreciate everyone's support here, everybody who voted for the tie, and everybody who abstained from the vote, and obviously, Mr. January for having the fortitude to stay by his principles and support his constitutional and his statutory authority. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know y'all miss me. Here's the thing. Leonard White, 5761 Grant Street. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, specifically when I heard the not the councilman, but the counselor, town attorney make a statement as to an abstention means a no. It doesn't. It doesn't matter if you do an abstention. It means 0. That means you can't, you might as well say, well, it could have meant a yes. So it doesn't have to fall on the side of a no. So the only thing I'm trying to do is keep you guys out of contempt when that judge made that statement, to open it up immediately. We should listen to him. My second one, I just had a question as to, did the town of Merrillville, did they redistrict in 2010? Because the numbers look eerily the same. Did it? Sean, you should know. You've been here longer than, what, 21 years?
It's every 10 years later, 2020.
Right, but I looked at the
With the
2020,
census.
I looked at the 2010 map, and it looks eerily same to the 2020 map until you were kind of forced to even everything out. So I was just wondering, did the town of Merrillville redistrict in 2010? Aye. That was my question. So do I get an answer or just thank you for my comment?
Yeah, the towns and cities have to redistrict every census.
Supposedly,
No, they have to. It's law.
but some towns have broken the law because they don't. So I'm just asking, for 2010, Mr. Pettit was here.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it did,
See,
absolutely.
you don't know?
No, it did.
No, I'm asking Mr. Pettit, he doesn't know. Okay, thank you.
So our next town council meeting is January 14th, and if there's no objection, I will adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Adjourn.
Aye.
Aye.
You don't have to vote. You don't have to vote.
Happy New Year.